Okay, welcome back. This is Dory, and I am going to talk about classification of jade. And I will put a big caveat in that there are so many different classification and so many different call it schools of thought on how jade should be classifying the same thing. So don't take this as cast in stone. Uh, Excuse the pun, but it gives you a sense of the complexities of the whole jade industry and the jade value chain, etc. So here I'll talk about classification by rough, by origin, by skin. Skin means the cover, and but there's other types of classification. So here we go. So this is our next vlog, classification by rough, origin, and skin. But there's other classification by color. The classification by treated versus untreated. The classifications when it comes to grading. So it can be perhaps dizzying. Uh, Maybe just view this as background. So let's move on. Jade Gem Hunters about hunting for jadeite for you. We Our goal is to continue to canvass all of the jadeite markets. Uh, because of COVID, we're restricting ourselves to Thailand. Uh, Number one, you can't fly out. And number two, their restriction for coming back home in Thailand is a 14-day at a state designated hotel or facility, which I don't want to go through. I don't want to be, sleeping with a bunch of other folk who may be asymptomatic or symptomatic of COVID-19. Uh, we want you to join us on the hunt. It may be a 12-hour delay given the time differences for many of you, but it makes your purchase a little bit more exciting and maybe for some a little bit more authentic. Our purpose of our vlogs is help you be a better shopper and for some to be a better collector. Collecting jadeite is a totally different topic, which I will put together at some point in the future. And a portion of what we make goes to those in need. Currently, we're focused on blind kids, and of course, some of the money go to Cayenne and Jinu. Okay, so as I said, jadeite is classified in many ways. There's the chemistry. I forgot about the chemistry and the physical properties, which I talked about in one vlog. Uh, Here we'll talk about roughs. Roughs is a different term for stones, actually the stone that you pick up from out of the ground. Myanmar has its own classification, but there are classifications by the topology and the geography. I think I mentioned the geography. It depends on where you are in Kachin State. That characterizes generally the type of jadeite you'll find. And topologically, what I mean is whether it's in the mountains or in the river, and we'll talk about that. There's rough skin, that's the skin of the stone. Uh, uh, One of these days, I'll put another video together that Barbara put together of this gentleman that we met in Maysai. He is truly an expert. He can read the outside of a jade stone and generally describe what is inside. So, and he's apparently noted in Hong Kong and Myanmar as an expert with being able to read stone, read rough skin. And then you have roughs at the market, and I'll get into that a little bit. Color, I mentioned there's color classification by chemistry. The colors are primary and secondary colors, and then there's all of the different characteristics of jadeite that makes it less or more valuable. And then finally, perhaps this is a vlog that you're interested in hearing about, and this is a topic that we're learning about, and we went and talked to Gem Lab this past week to learn that new techniques are being developed every single day to make jadeite look better than it originally was. And then there's valuation. Valuation is how do you figure out how expensive a piece of jade is, and there is a blog for that. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so I mentioned in the vlog where does jadeite come from. A lot of jadeite is sold through the government emporium sales. The MGE emporium sales is 3 times a year, and that number keeps on increasing. It originally started where you could only attend if you're invited, and a deposit was required to minimize the gawkers. That might be people like us, just looking, but we can't afford these large stones or expensive stones. But it's getting to be more open as the government tries to generate its income from jadeite, and lots of articles about it that basically says if the government could transfer the smuggled jade through legitimate channels, there's enough money that can cover more than the healthcare needs of this very poor country. So the emporium sales originally started, as I understand it, focusing on the stones, on the roughs. But now it is possible to find finished jade, meaning cabochons or pendants or bangles, etc., and gemstone. But the real focus is to generate, call it a large-scale tax revenue for the government and control it. So the emporium sales used to be in the capital of Yangon, but the government decided to transfer the capital to a brand new capital called Naypyidaw. It's been spelled many different ways, but Naypyidaw is a brand new capital, very structured city, which I find fascinating. But to give a sense of the type of revenue they get at the emporium sale, they generated $500 million in 2017 and 3.5 at a peak 3.5 in 2014. The numbers have gone down since. The first government sanctioned emporium sale in Mandalay was in 2019. We happened to catch it at the last day. It generated only 20 million. So it was a bit disappointing, but it was only the first one. And as you saw in the capital, it grew from $500 million to 3.5, depending on the year. Oh, I'm sorry. 600 million is the drop in 2017. So, like I said, 3.5 billion was a peak year. But I have some pictures. This is a Naypyidaw Imperium sale. These guys are carrying torchlights. Most often the stones are cut in half, but not all of them. And I'll get into some terminology there. There's some beautiful pieces Look at this one. Look at the imperial green on this. Look at the size of this torchlight. Okay, these are pictures that we took from the Mandalay Emporium sales. Again, most of the rocks are cut to maximize the opportunity for a sale. Here you'll see writing on the stone. It indicates that the stone has been registered and tax has been paid. So the Myanmar classification or grading system classifies jadeite into 3 major categories, but each major category has subcategories. I have not been able to get details on the subcategories, and I just purchased a book of 500 pages about jade roughs, and hopefully I can uncover what they are. But first one with imperial jade, there's 7 subgrade. In general, imperial jade is considered to have even and fine texture. It has this brilliant, vivid emerald green, good transparency, and good clarity, meaning not a lot of inclusion. So depending on who you read and who you talk to, per kilo, imperial jade was going for 20,000 US in 2013, and it peaked at 800,000 per kilo in 2014. And I already mentioned that someone paid 300,000 for less than 1.5 ounces of imperial jadeite. Now, in terms of all of the stones that are displayed at the Emporium sales, each year is different. Here they said in 2011, only 0.002% of the imperial jadeite roughs of all jadeite was, 0.002% of all of the jadeite that was displayed for sale was imperial jade, going up to 1.5% in 2014. Here's an example of these 3 pieces. 248 pound, it cost $150,000 a pound. Commercial jade is considered 2nd grade jade. It has 7 subgrades. It's distinguishable by colors. It's translucent. It has veins made for pendants. So there'll be a little vein in a rough that is not big enough to make a large piece, but big enough to make smaller pieces, whether it's a pendant, a carving, or a bangle. So here, in 2012, it demanded $900 per kilo to $2,700 per kilo in 2014. So I've also read that you can buy commercial jade for several $100 per kilo. That's a typo. And of all of the jadeite displayed and sold, 1.9% was commercial, 11% was, in 2014, was commercial. Utility jade is a 3rd grade jade. It's got 4 subgrades. Again, I don't know the subgrade, and I hope to learn about it. They can be colorless. They have a range of green. Green is the most desirable colors, although there are other colors that are very attractive, very demanding. like the lavenders and even the red jade. They have a coarser texture, lower quality, and again, they come in a range of green. So this is interesting. The prices uh, at the Emporium sale range from $86 in 2012 to $500 per kilo. So what we've learned that depending on where you go, utility jade can go for several dollars to tens of dollars, scores of dollars per kilo. And the majority of the jadeite that's sold at the Emporium sale is utility jade. Okay, I'm just going to go through some of these real quick just to give a sense of the complexity of the whole jadeite industry. New mine, it tend to be the stuff that you see the big earth movers trying to uncover, break up, and uncover. They could be tons and tons of kilo in weight, but they tend to be skinless because they are just vein. They're just like lines of jadeite embedded amongst the other stones or dirt. Um, there's mountain jade. Mountain jade is the jade that used to be new mine, but it's broken up and it's found itself in dirt for eon, for hundreds of thousands of years, and eventually that mountain jade might roll down the mountain into the water, and mountain jade tend to be very jagged. I don't remember if I'm going to describe all of this, but then you have the surface water jade. That's the mountain jade that's fallen into the water, and then there's the water skin jade that has been sort of at the base of the rivers, and it's been rolling down the rivers for years, and all of the jagged edges have been ground off, and they tend to be much rounder or ovalish. And terrace jade, which is most of the jadeite that you see in pecan, is the jadeite that has been lifted up uh, through the movements of the earth back up into the mountains. And that's what you see in the pecan mines. Um, so I'm just going to flash these slides up. I have a lot to learn about this. I'm going to go back to Masai and treat John, what I call John, the professor, that gentleman who knows a lot about jade and can read jade's stones, but each of these stones have a meaning in terms of its content. And they're just named to me at this point, but my preliminary research says that there's classification by grade, and I don't know what all of the meaning mean in terms of what they look like. I'm searching for a book that actually has illustrations of each one of these skin types. There's middle to lower grade. There's a series of names for those, and there's others, which I haven't been able to put into the higher or the middle to lower grade categories. Okay, so that's about roughs, that's about skin, that's about classifications of roughs. So here's an interesting topic. So, and we talked about this with John in Masai. There are people who take stone and they make them look like jadeite. So that's why I call them fake rough classification. They will put fake skin on. They use tools of grinding skin from a former piece of jadeite and mixing it with the appropriate colors that make it look like the more valuable, and they will glue it back on the stone. And John talked about how they're taking these stone to America and to Europe and faking the buyers out. So you have to be careful. Um, Dyeing, I don't think yeah, okay. So dyeing, literally, they'll put a piece of jadeite into a bucket of dye, and they'll let it soak for a period of time, and they will make that surface green to give a sense that what's inside is greener than it really is. So transfer flour and wood is another technique of of what they do is they may drill a hole in a jadeite, and they'll get some really green material, fill up the hole, and then cover it up, creating a little window for people to look at and say, "Oh my gosh, this is imperial jadeite," and they'll sell it for $1,000 instead of what the real McCoy would be of tens or hundreds of thousands. So that's a term, transfer flour and wood is a term used for that. And then there's simulant rough. You're going to see a whole vlog about simulants. This is jade that's not jade, but they call it jade. So they do the same thing with the stone. And then finally, just wanted to highlight that when people intend to go to the market to sell their stone, they have to make a decision on how they want to sell it. They can sell it as a dark rough, aka also known as dark stone, which means they don't cut it. They just put the jadeite on a shelf or a table, and they look for someone who's willing to make the gamble. They may put a little window on it to give an indication of what's inside. Um, that depends on the seller. And there's other names for it: gambling rough or obscure rough. Clear rough, we saw one in Maasai where they just ground all of the skin off the stone, and all you see is jadeite. And I should share a picture of a piece of clear rough that a John had, and it just had white jadeite, green, and right in the middle there was this rich lavender section that he said he was going to make a pendant out of. Okay, half dark rough and half clear rough. Half of the skin cut away or the stone is cut into pieces. So it's sort of the second step to a dark stone. And you saw at the Emporium sale, many of stones were cut into at least two pieces. So they're called half dark rough or half clear rough. And then I talked about the windows. This is apparently a very tricky business. You cut away, grind away, you polish up a little piece of the stone, which the seller hopes shows that the stone inside is much richer than it may or may not. So again, thank you for watching. Like us on Facebook and like us on the YouTube channel, JGem Hunter. Submit any questions or comments on Messenger, JGem Hunter, or any of us, Barbara or myself. Tell your friends about us. We truly believe that by sharing more information about jadeite, the more educated you become and the better shopper that you become. Most people, as I mentioned once before, there's a gem trader who's been in the business for 30 years, said that we are sharing information that only the inner circle knows, but we think a lot of this is important to help you as you canvass the internet for something that you like. You can at least have some knowledge in the back of your head, sometimes to ask questions, sometimes to help you make a better choice. And again, tell us to your friends about us, and we always look forward to hunting for you. So thank you again.